Hi guys. Okay, so this is kind of a rant video, just sharing a story video, maybe story time. I just want to tell you what happened last week when I was working on a film set. Some of you know I work in the film business, and I was working on this set of Killjoys as an extra. And you know, I'm sharing this story because it's the kind of thing you possibly are going to face and likely going to face if you're vegan, whether it be from family, friends, or strangers, co-workers, whatever. You're going to be challenged sometimes, and it's not always easy to keep your cool. This particular person really stressed me out in that moment, but I mean, I really tried to handle it well. I'm going to just tell you, you know, if you can't form a response, if you don't know what to say, just like walk away. There's no harm in saying, you know, I don't really like having this conversation. I'm removing myself from the conversation. It's harder when it's family, but you know, if you shut it down if you're going to be too flustered. But for me, I was ready for him because, you know, I've been vegan now. Hey, this is like my vegan anniversary month, by the way. Woo! 4 years vegan as of August 2014. So, you know, this is a special month for me because that's when I, you know, 4 years ago I decided to go vegan. And for me, veganism is not just food, it's about the compassion primarily for our fellow earthlings. And, you know, it encompasses a whole lot, but you shouldn't be berated for your choice, first of all. We all know that, especially if you've been vegan and knowing there are vegans who've been out there since birth and for how many decades, it's certainly easy enough to live a vegan lifestyle without worrying about, you know, coming down with deficiencies and so forth, despite what all people want to say. Anyway, here I was, we were finishing the day, and you know, the A&W burger has come out in Canada and it's already been sold out. It's unavailable across Canada. That's how popular it's been. And one guy was saying to me, he's not quite vegan, but he's getting there, and he sees me, he loves talking to me. He believes in it, in the ethics. He's just stuck on dairy. You know, we all know why. It's addictive. But he was saying to me, oh, you know, I'm telling some people about the Beyond Burger and they just don't believe that it's any good. So I said, tell them to look up some reviews. So I went and found one of the reviews online from a meat eater, and you know, there are plenty of them saying they thought it was meat or it was absolutely delicious, whatever it was. So I showed one guy and he's very keen. He said he loves the taste of beef, but he also feels bad because he likes cows. You look in those big eyes, but he likes their flesh. So he's looking for alternatives that will help him to be able to cut out meat. And that's what he specifically said, which is why it's so important to have these meat alternatives, no matter how you personally as a vegan feel about them. They are important for helping people transition, people who would otherwise continue eating their meat, eggs, dairy. So he was open. Then another guy, I guess, overheard me, and he's like, oh, I don't want to eat anything that's created in a lab. And I said, well, do you know what's in the burger? Yeah, well, you know, I don't want to know. I said, well, it's just a bunch of plants put together to come up with certain things. You know, of course, they don't care what's in the meat, how the meat was raised, how the animal was raised, how it was slaughtered, the hormones, etc., yada yada. That's all fine, right? The fact that the cholesterol and saturated fat is the #1 cause of heart disease, you can't tell them this. So another guy happened to be overhearing me, and he was saying something like, oh, you know, I just don't like veggie burgers. And I said, you know, you really should try this burger. Oh, he kind of went on like, oh, no, I don't want to try it. You know, it's not going to taste like meat. Like, you know, all these vegans are trying to replicate meat. And I said, no, actually, we're not trying to replicate meat for our sake. I mean, it's great. I'm happy to try it. I'm happy to have an option when I'm out if it's late and there's nothing else to eat, sure. But I said, the reason you know, this is appealing is for guys like you who don't want to give up meat. Because actually he said that. He's like, oh, you know, why do you guys want to make something that tastes like meat if you're against eating meat? And I said, it's not for vegans, it's for you guys. And then he went on to tell me he actually did try the Beyond Burger and he knew something was off, that he didn't realize it was the plant-based burger when he bought it, even though he had the coupon for it, and that he went back up and said, oh, this tastes off, this doesn't taste right, and they told him it was a plant-based burger, blah, blah, blah. This is where it started. He went on to say that he dated a vegan, and you know, he bought some seitan ribs somewhere, and it was $62, and he didn't understand, you know, why you have to pay all this money for fake stuff. And I think that's when I made the comment about it's not really for vegans, but it's for people who like that. And if you want to eat it, if you're vegan, I've got no issue. Not harming an animal, fine with me. He said, well, you know, it's fine to be vegan if you want, but you must realize that vegans have the highest mortality. They've got the lowest lifespan of all people across the planet. And I'm like, okay, well, I already know what you're saying is not true. This is completely against the actual evidence. But he went on. He said, you know, the only place in the world where people even have a vegan diet where you could study it would be India, where they're, he said vegetarian or vegan, or he might have said where they're vegan, and they have the highest mortality rate. And I said, I think I said something to the effect of, okay, let's assume what you're saying is true. Do you think that there's something else in a country like India, being like a third world country, that might contribute to early deaths besides their diet? No. No. And this is, I mean, this is just a guy who was a bigot, because he went from that to kind of giving a comment that I considered racist. So he said, Indian people have big families and they keep breeding. He said they don't have children because they love their kids. They have children because they need the children to work on the farms, etc. And I said, no, you can't say they don't love their kids. No, they don't love their children. They only want people to work. They only want, like, hands to work for them. And I said, well, that's a very horrible comment for you to make. I said, first of all, you don't know any of these people. And secondly, it goes against biology to have a child and not love it. Like, you know, it happens, but that's, like, you can't say that about an entire group of people. Oh, no, yes, I can. Yeah, I can. You know, they're having kids because, you know, the Bible said this, and he went on to talk about religion on a tangent. I think I said, well, how is this different from other people? You know, earlier settlers, pioneers, etc. had larger families, and I said it wasn't really because everybody felt you had to have children. I said it was because you didn't have birth control. And he said, no, that's not true. And I said, okay, so you're going to tell me that my grandmother, who had no access to birth control and had like 10 kids, she did that just because she wanted to? Or did she do it because, you know what, husbands and wives continue to have sex after you've had one child and hey, that's how babies are made? No, I was completely wrong. My grandparents and everybody else had more than one child because the Bible told them to and because they wanted to create a little workforce for themselves. So you kind of get an idea of the kind of person we're dealing with. So I wanted to backtrack to veganism because I was offended by his comment, and I kind of started to think I know who I'm dealing with here. But there are people around, and to just sort of jump forward, it turns out he is that kind of guy. He's the antagonistic, opinionated jerk everywhere. And people afterwards said, I don't know why you bothered talking to him. He is like, he's just a jerk. But anyway, so he went back to telling me that vegans are completely not healthy. And then I went on to tell him, well, I said, have you ever heard about the, I said, you know what blue zones are? And I said, he didn't really know, and I told him it's the, you know, blue zones are the areas in the world where more people live to be 100 than anywhere else. And I told him the only blue zone in North America is in California, Loma Linda, with the Seventh-day Adventists, who are to some degree vegetarian, but mostly vegan at this point. And he said, oh, well, I guess I should tell my grandparents that because, you know, they lived to be 100 and they weren't part of this church. I said, I didn't say that. I didn't say that only people that are vegan or from the blue zones live to that age, but more people, which tells you that your talk about vegans dying earlier than everyone else is obviously not true. Okay, so he went from that to, well, why don't vegans care about plants? I mean, I guess he probably would have rhymed off all those textbook nonsense reasons. You know, vegans eat plants, you know, you don't care about killing plants. And I said, well, if you actually are a plants rights activist, then you should be happy to go vegan, because if you go vegan, you're going to kill less plants because more plants are raised to, or grown to feed 65 billion land animals a year. Okay, well then you know, oh, well, I want plants to die. I don't know, it was stupid in a way, but he was still engaging me as we were trying to get finished at the end of the day. And then he said, well, what's wrong with dairy? And he apparently had dated a vegan. He said, you know, you guys get all upset about dairy, you know, animals don't get killed. I said, of course they get killed. No, they don't. You know, dairy cows get to live their lives. I said, how is that possible? I said, just think about this logically. You know, I said, dairy cows procreate, and at a certain point they stop, and how is it going to be feasible for a farmer to continue to let this cow live out its life for what, 20 more years possibly, feeding it, etc.? I said, it doesn't make sense. And he kind of fought me on that, and then I went on to talk about, somehow we got to talking about methane. He said this is a myth, methane doesn't exist. I said, well, have you consulted with any scientists like the UN, etc.? I mean, methane is a top cause of pollution, climate change, etc. And then he went on to say, oh, he was just so aggravating. When I said to him, there are so many studies you can look at. Oh, I think I told him about, I know somebody personally who had lupus, was at death's door, went vegan, and also Dr. Brooke Goldner. I said, why don't you look at these people up? Oh, I don't have to look them up. You know, my brother had lupus, and he went vegan, and it killed him. And I said, well, how do you know that killed him? Oh, because, you know, he went vegan, and then he started to get weak, and then he died. And I said, okay, what about all the people who are meat eaters who died from lupus? Okay, so are they dying because they're meat eaters? I said, maybe if he actually went vegan, which I'm not sure he really did, I couldn't trust this guy. Maybe it was at a point that was too late, etc. And he said, he went on to tell me that my friend and Dr. Brooke Goldner probably never really had lupus. They just thought they had lupus. I said, okay, so like Dr. Brooke Goldner was in the hospital having radiation therapy at 17 because she didn't have lupus. Like, who? You haven't even looked at the information. I don't believe it. It's not true. And I said, okay, I know who you are. I said, you know, with the stuff you're saying to me, I know exactly who you are. And, oh gosh, he went through a couple other, you know, of the nonsensical excuses. I don't think he brought up lions. Did he bring up canines? Oh, it was stupid. But at least the people around me, like somebody else actually said, you know, did you not know about climate change? Or like methane is a major polluter. And he said that, oh, he went on to say that E. coli, well, you know, E. coli is what's going to kill people, you know, eating spinach that has E. coli. I said, where does E. coli come from? I said, it comes from feces. I said, the one big E. coli outbreak apparently had come from the runoff from a factory farm with all the feces that went down into the farm fields and contaminated the product. Like, he's the kind of guy who won't even do any research, but he apparently has the answers for everything. I suggested that he watch Forks Over Knives. I suggested that he watch, you know, What the Health. I talked to him about the correlation between heart disease and saturated fat. Oh, this is all a lie. This is all a lie that vegans have made up. You know, you guys can decide if you want to be vegan or not, but stop pretending it's healthier because you know it's not healthier. Vegans die earlier. And I just said, okay, you know what? Again, I had to repeat, I know who I'm dealing with. I know who you are. You're that guy. You're that guy. Because I said to him, you know what? I didn't become vegan just like this. I first started hearing about the health things. I started to look into it. Like, really, are people healthier? Oh my goodness. This benefit, that benefit. And then I went on to tell him, this is what actually annoyed me. I said to him, I've had asthma. And my asthma symptoms have decreased so significantly since I went vegan. I said, my iron has gotten better. And he told me that I was lying. And I said, okay, I actually can't deal with you because I'm not, like, there's no benefit to me to lie. I'm not making any money. And yeah, I care about animals, but around me, people are eating them all day long. So, you know, one more guy who's continuing to eat them is not stopping other people or stopping the grocery stores. So yeah, I understand one by one we can change the world, but in that, the way it is right now, me telling him or anybody else, like, I am not personally benefiting from this. And I don't have a reason to lie. And I really, I don't know how I held my cool because, you know, somebody else, the other guy who was trying to, who was not quite vegan yet, told me how that guy was insulting him, making fun of him. Oh yeah, he told me you can't get protein on the vegan diet. I said, do you know where protein comes from? Like, this is science. Plants have protein. Animals eat the plants and then the protein builds in their bodies. Like, it was just stupid, the things he was saying. But I think at least it was good for the people around because they, you know, maybe they've never heard about this, maybe they never knew about people having benefits from veganism, so at least they heard my story as I was, I'd say, arguing but not fighting. Like, it wasn't, I was passionate but not like overboard, but I was trying to convey my points with someone who was very dense and very offensive. And then he walked off to go get changed, and that guy came up to me, the other guy, and that's when he said, you know, he was making fun of me. And I realized that this guy who's trying to be vegan probably didn't have the skills to stand up to this guy. But when he brought up studies or health, or what, he didn't bring up studies because he's never read one, obviously. But when he brought up health, I could bring up the Adventist Health Study, I could bring up the Blue Zones, I could tell him some things to watch, I could talk about the climate change, and anything I've said to him, he can go look up. So I hope that at least the people around me heard. But you know, it does get you all flustered, and I know at least I've done my research. I mean, the research never ends. I love listening to podcasts, listening to doctors, watching YouTube videos, hearing stories of people's lives who've been transformed. So I could answer. And if this is something that you might be struggling with, or maybe you've got that family member you can't avoid who's constantly attacking you about veganism, then, you know, I think it's good for you to find a few anecdotes that you can turn to. And we understand that not everybody's going to be the same, but, you know, there was a doctor who talked about having heard that veganism cured someone's lupus. So she said she tried it on one of her patients, fully expecting it not to work. She thought this was just a fluke. You know, miracles happen, things happen, somehow you get cured sometimes. Sometimes you don't know why. Let's put it like that. So she thought this was going to fail. Months later, when she does the test, this patient came back with no more lupus. She said this is a fluke. Obviously it's a fluke. But she tried it again. Like, you know, something about her is like, is it a fluke? But she didn't believe it. She took another patient. She put them on a plant-based diet. When after the testing came back, and this person was also lupus-free, she said she went home, she took out all the meat, ice cream, eggs from her fridge, and she threw everything away. Now she and her family are vegan. So watch some of these videos. Watch videos, you know, Dr. Greger, all the health experts. The Vegetarian Society of Hawaii has a great channel with great doctors and speakers who come in to talk. But find some of those stories where people did well. But you know what? Even at the end of the day, it's about, can we live without killing animals? That's the reason to be vegan, because yeah, you could eat Beyond Burgers, and I'm not saying that's a healthy issue. You can eat salad all the time when, you know, that's not so fun, but you can eat whole foods, or you can eat some vegan ice cream. You know what? Or you can have a mix of both. My primary concern is this planet, the animals, and I am not a purist, so I will have some vegan ice cream, but the rest of the time I'm eating whole foods that I make at home, with the exception of when I go out and try some tasty and innovative vegan food. So the point being, guys, find some of the stories you can turn to. If it's about health, find some of those. If it's about people being able to sustain themselves as vegans, look at some of the vegan bodybuilders out there. Find the stories you can use to deal with the people in your life, and listen and keep learning. You know, that's what I would say, because it helps you. Because I was ready. I actually kind of laughed afterwards, thinking he picked the wrong person to come at with his stories about vegans being weak and so forth, etc., because I completely know the opposite to be true. But anyway, guys, have you had a fight with someone about veganism? Someone at your work, someone you in your family? You know, share your stories, share your comments below. I know it's frustrating. Tell me how you handled it, and tell me if you have any pointers for me. And yeah, you know, sometimes you engage, sometimes you walk away, but he fully came at me, and so I defended what I knew and my position, and I'm happy as a vegan. And you know, I really hope that at least, while I might not have gotten through to him, the people around heard and some seeds were planted. Alright guys, that is all for now. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.